This is Miles Carter on the air from a basement office in Derry Township, Pennsylvania, just east of Hershey, broadcasting on a small portable transceiver tied to a car battery and a wire strung through a maple tree. If you can hear me, you are not alone. I am not a professional anything. I fix vending machines and soda fountains for a living. I learned radios from my grandfather, who used to check into the evening nets and taught me how to listen before I talk. Tonight, I am talking because the official voices went quiet one by one, and I promised my neighbors I would keep the light on, even if it is only a voice in the dark. If you are tuning across the dial and everything sounds wrong, you are hearing the great solar storm that the space weather folks warned about for days. It was a big flare, then a coronal mass ejection, then a series of them, like a long breath from the sun. The first one rattled the ionosphere and made the static sing. The second one pushed the aurora all the way down past Ohio. The third one is why your phone died, and your car's navigation forgot every road it ever knew. I am going to keep this simple and grounded. No drama, just what I hear, what I see, and what neighbors and strangers are telling me across the air. If I name a place, it is because someone there said it on a frequency I could copy. If I describe a thing, it is because my own eyes saw it. If you are near Hershey, the big chocolate plant is dark. The parking lots are still. The emergency generators are running at the medical center on the hill. But not every wing is lit. Sirens come and go. The sky has a green curtain to the north like an ocean wave standing still. I am running on a deep cycle battery pulled from my pickup. The charger on the workbench is now a pretty paperweight. I have a small inverter that can run one lamp or charge one handheld at a time. I am logging with a pencil on a yellow legal pad. I am old enough to remember paper, and young enough to wish I had printed out more maps. For the record, I started hearing official bulletins from Boulder around mid-afternoon. The tone was calm. The energy was high. They said elevated indices, major disturbance, power companies on alert. Flights were routing around polar tracks. GPS timing was unstable. It was the sort of message that makes professionals sit up and check procedures while the rest of us keep shopping for coffee. By early evening, the first big hit had arrived. HF opened like a door to places I do not usually hear. I copied fishing boats off the banks arguing about compasses, a weather station in the Upper Peninsula reading gusts and then dropping mid-sentence, and a pilot declaring a navigation failure and requesting vectors, very polite, very steady, as if training just took over. Local notes. Hershey Park is closed. The road signs flickered, went dark, and came back as ghost screens with nonsense characters. The township water plant is on generator. That is what Steve from the volunteer fire company told me when he stopped by and picked up 2 extra fuel cans. He asked if I could stay on the air so the neighborhood loop has one steady voice. I said yes. I also said I would not say anything that would make people panic. So here is the line I am holding. Stay calm. Stay home if you can. Conserve batteries. Check on the folks who live alone. And if you have a handheld radio, keep it on low power and short transmissions. If you are just joining, my name is Miles. I am on an AM loop antenna that I made from scrap wire and an HF dipole that never quite tuned right, but works better tonight than it ever has. The air is weird. It feels like the whole sky is a mirror and sometimes a funnel. Signals come in too loud, then fade like a wave sliding off a beach. Reports from the wider world. From Pittsburgh, someone relayed that the big AM station on the North Shore was in and out. Engineers talking to each other on backup links, asking if the transmitter site had switched to generator. A nurse in Harrisburg came up on a handheld and said the hospital was triaging devices that need stable power. She sounded steady, and she asked if anyone had spare alkaline batteries for portable monitors. I told her I would pass it on. If you are listening and you have spares, drop them at the volunteer firehouse. Do not crowd the hospital. Do not block ambulance lanes. A freight engineer, out of Enola Yard, called on a railroad band and said dispatch screens were blank, trains stacked on sidings, crews waiting for authorization, written by hand. He sounded almost relieved to be using a pen. He said the old rules work when the screen goes dark. Paper orders. Eyes on the rails. I believe him. The power situation. I am not a grid expert. I am just passing what I hear from utility crews and a retired lineman in Palmyra who keeps a scanner by his recliner. He told me the storm is saturating long lines with slow, steady currents, not the fast snap that trips breakers, but the creeping push that heats the big iron. He said the smart thing is to shed load, split the grid into islands, and nurse it back when the sky calms down. If you see your lights dim, and then go out in a way that looks deliberate, that might be the operators making sure the heavy equipment does not cook from the inside. I know it is cold comfort, but deliberate dark is better than broken metal. I am going to read a few more items off the log. A fishing charter off Cape May reported the compass swinging like a gate in the wind. He said he trusts his eyes and his chart more than a number on a screen tonight. A small airport near Lancaster reported runway lights on minimum and a handful of aircraft that turned back rather than chase a moving needle. A truck driver on Route 81 said card readers at 3 gas stations gave a blank stare. He paid cash and said thank you. If you have cash, use it kindly. If you run a store and can sell something without a scanner, write it down and settle the numbers later. Neighbors check in. Mrs. Delgado next door is okay. Her oxygen concentrator is on a backup inverter, and her son is cycling it with a small generator outside. He has it far from the windows, and a fan is moving air away so nobody breathes fumes. He has a carbon monoxide alarm that still works because it runs on batteries. He taped a note to the door with a phone number and a short list of items. Bottled water, D batteries, brown rice. If you live on a block with elders or infants, put a note like that where a neighbor can see it. I keep glancing at the sky between transmissions because the aurora is bright enough to cast a weak shadow on the driveway. Green with a purple edge. It looks like the whole horizon up north is a city I do not remember visiting. There are no fire sirens up that way right now. That is a good sign. A voice from New York cut in about 20 minutes ago. He said Brooklyn had a view of curtains over the East River and that some subway lines were holding trains at stations. He did not have official details, just that the platforms were crowded but quiet. He asked if I could relay a simple message. Check on the person beside you, share a flashlight beam, and let the rush hour be patient. If you are hearing me in the 5 boroughs, pass it along with your own calm voice. Transmission discipline. Keep it short. Give call sign or first name. State your city. 2 facts are better than 10 guesses. I am going to model that right now. Miles in Derry Township. Power is out to half the neighborhood. Hospital on generator. Aurora visible. Water plant on generator. Roads passable. Fuel available for cash at the Turkey Hill on Governor Road until their tanks run low. Police radio traffic moderate but steady. No curfew announced. That is the report. I am going to take a breath. I put a mug of hot water next to the microphone so I remember to drink. I have made 2 bad decisions already tonight, and both came from forgetting basic needs. First, I nearly ran the car battery too low because I left the inverter on with nothing plugged in. Second, I forgot to eat dinner, and the room felt like it was tipping for a minute. If you are listening, take a sip of water. Eat a bite of something simple. Turn off the devices you do not need. Keep the things you do. There is a call from a barge pilot on the Delaware River saying, "Traffic control is manual and slow." He sounded unruffled, like someone who has seen fog so thick you could lean on it. He said the river is forgiving if people are. 2. Slow. Talk clearly. Do not assume the other boat knows where you are. Another voice from Cleveland said the big lake looks like it swallowed the sky. He saw lights along the shore wink out in a rolling wave, then come back in islands. He said he is listening on a small transistor that belonged to his father. He wanted me to say that a single AAA battery and a little patience can bring half a continent into a quiet room if the night is right. I believe him. Tonight, the night is both wrong and right. For those who asked how I am broadcasting, the chain is simple. The portable transceiver runs on 12 volts. The antenna is a wire in the tree. The ground is a copper rod I hammered into the garden last summer when the tomatoes were tall. The mic is the kind that came in the box. The power management is a notebook and a timer. I transmit for 1 minute out of every 5 when the net is busy and a little longer when it is quiet, so I do not burn the battery. If you set up a neighborhood net, pick a schedule and make it boring. Boring lives longer. What went first today, for most people, was the clock. Not the one on your wall, but the one that tells everything else when to talk. Phones lean on timing signals. Towers lean on them, too. The big networks use them like a heartbeat. When the storm shoves the ions around, the heartbeat stutters. A few seconds of drift turns into missing beats. Then the things that were supposed to speak in order talk over each other, and it sounds like a cafeteria during lunch. The fix is not magic. It is quiet time, steady hands, and sometimes unplugging and plugging back in after the sky settles. That is not a satisfying answer, but it is the one I keep hearing from people with tool bags and keys. I am getting a steady carrier from a county to the west where a small emergency operations center is reading a list. It is a good list, and I want to repeat the pattern if not the exact words. Keep refrigerators closed. Use perishable food first. Do not run generators indoors. Do not use a gas stove to heat a home. If a signal controls an intersection and the signal is dark, treat it like a four-way stop. If you have a medical device that depends on power, go to a place with a generator, but call first if you can so you are not waiting in a line for no reason. There is a rumor that the blackout is permanent. It is not. Things break. Yes. Heavy things sometimes break in a way that needs a crane and a truck from far away. But the people who run the grid are good at this. The hard part is patience. While the sun finishes talking, that is me editorializing. I will stop. I am going to pivot to personal. My wife, Erin, is upstairs with a flashlight and a paperback she has read 3 times. She checked on Mrs. Delgado and called my sister in Mechanicsburg while the phone still worked. She told me not to make promises on the air that I cannot keep. I told her I would only promise to keep speaking as long as the battery holds. She nodded and said, "Good. Then please keep it kind." She knows me. I can get clipped when I am tired. If I sound short, it is because the meter on the battery drops a little each hour, and I keep thinking about how to stretch it. I have a small solar blanket in the garage from a camping trip. If the clouds thin tomorrow and the sun behaves between fits, I will lay it on the hood of the truck and see if I can trickle a little back. I do not expect miracles. A little is good. A little keeps the words moving. More reports. A voice from Boston said the big hospitals were steady and the older buildings threw their windows open to keep air moving. A man from Baltimore said the harbor cranes froze mid-arc, and everyone on the ground did what people do when something that big stops moving. They backed up and kept their hands out of it. A teacher in State College said the university sent people home early, and the bus drivers took it slow. She said campus is quiet, and the sky looks like someone is taking long exposures with a camera. You asked about water. In this township, the pump station has a generator that can carry it for some hours. After that, it depends on fuel. The crews have a plan. I know because I once fixed a fountain in their break room and listened to the way they talk about their job. They are proud of it. The plan is to rotate, to keep pressure stable, to ask residents to keep consumption low. If you have a bathtub and the water is still running, fill it now. If the water is off, use what you have and share if you can. Someone keyed up and asked if this is like the old event in the 1800s. I am not a historian. I do know the name Carrington because every article used it this week. The part that matters is not the name. It is the idea that the sky has done this before and will do it again. We built a tall house full of wires. Sometimes the wind shakes it. We brace the beams, and we light a candle until the shaking stops. I am going to open the floor for a minute. If you have a short report, give first name, city, and 2 facts. Then clear so someone else can talk. I will relay what I can. If the band collapses, I will come back at the top of the hour and try again. Jared, in York. Grocery store on Queen Street closed early. Manager gave out ice to people with insulin. Police at the door, keeping it orderly. Thank you, Jared. Linda in Lancaster. Amish neighbors offered to share cold storage in an ice house. They asked for nothing in return. Linda sounds grateful. She is going to bring them jars and lids next week. Mike, near Altoona. Substation crew, disconnecting 2 long lines, isolating the town on a small loop. He says lights will go out for a while, then they will try to bring it back slowly. He sounded focused. not worried. Carol in Scranton. City buses parked nose to tail at the depot. Drivers told to rest. Dispatch by paper in the morning. Ralph in Erie. Lake glow is strong. Noah radio went quiet for a minute, then came back with a recorded message. He says it's looping. I lost a whole wall of stations for a few seconds. My receiver went from crowded to empty, like the ocean pulling back before a big wave. The noise floor dropped, and my own voice sounded too loud in the headphones. Now the static is back, thicker and slower, like someone tearing cloth in another room. If you are new to radio, do not chase every rise and fall. Keep your settings steady. Let the sky do the waving. A truck stop owner near Carlisle asked me to remind drivers that diesel pumps may slow because the underground storage monitors are confused. He is running the pumps on manual, but he has to check levels with a tape and a flashlight. He said, please be patient, and if the line is long, shut off your engine while you wait. I have a message for a kid named Owen from his dad, Mark, who is working an overnight at the plant. Owen, if you are listening on the little radio next to your bed, Dad says he will be home as soon as someone relieves him. He says feed the dog and make sure you put the lid on tight because she is clever. The dog is named Pepper. That is a good name. To the person who asked about planes, here is what I heard from 2 different pilots and 1 controller. Many large airports are fine on backup power. The harder part is timing for navigation and the way the sky is bending signals. Some flights are diverting to places with long runways and calm ground. Some are holding in the air until a plan is clear. The good news is that the people doing that work train for it. If you are near an airport and see aircraft stacked in patterns, do not panic. It is the shape of patience drawn in the sky. My hands smell like cold copper from the ground strap. I keep checking the clamp because a loose ground makes a good night bad. If you are setting up a radio station in a hurry, spend 5 extra minutes on the boring metal. The wire you do not see matters as much as the one you do. We have a call from a librarian in Camp Hill. She says the library had a line out the door in the afternoon for people printing boarding passes and insurance cards before the storm. They kept the doors open as long as they could. Then the power blinked and the printers died. She rolled out a cart with books on first aid, canning, and hand tools, and let people borrow on the honor system, writing down names in pencil. She sounded like someone who knows the shape of community. A listener from Philadelphia says the rivers look calm and the bridges are lit, but some traffic cams are out. He wanted to say this specifically to people in high rises. Fill sinks and tubs. Use stairs if elevators are not reliable. Check stairwell doors, do not lock behind you before you walk. Carry a small light. That is measured advice. I am getting a faint call from a small island station on the Chesapeake that says the tide charts are off by a nudge. That makes sense when the timing system that holds the grid steady is also wobbling. If you are on the water, give yourself margins. Leave earlier. Tie lines higher. Do not assume your usual schedule is exact. I hear someone keying up and letting go, as if he is testing courage more than equipment. Friend, if that is you, say your first name and your town. Tell us one thing you can do tonight that helps tomorrow. It can be as small as filling a pitcher for the morning, or putting your flashlight where your hand can find it before dawn. He did it. Name is Chris. Town is reading. He put a note on the lobby door of his building that says neighbors can knock for an extra blanket if the heat cycles off. Simple. That is how a street gets through a long night. We need to talk about batteries. If you have rechargeables, label them and rotate. If you only have alkalines, do not leave them in devices you are not using, in case a leak ruins something you need next week. If you have a car you are not driving, it is a quiet battery on wheels. But do not run it in a closed garage. Roll it out. Use an inverter only big enough to do the job. Waste is loud. Efficiency is quiet. Quiet wins. Someone asked if the sky can damage cars. The short answer is, most parked cars will be fine. The long lines that pick up slow currents are the vulnerable ones. That is why the grid operators are spreading the load. The fast spike that scares people during storms is not the main character tonight. Tonight it is the long push, the slow tide. Metals feel it in their bones. I want to give a snapshot of this block. Aaron put a candle in the front window, in a safe holder away from curtains. Mrs. Delgado's son is reading a manual for the generator, like it is a sacred text. The teenager across the street is walking the family dog down the middle of the road, with a reflective vest and a headlamp pointed at the ground. Someone far away is running a chainsaw, which I hope is clearing a limb and not trying to chase a problem after dark. If you have a problem you can push to tomorrow in the light, do that. Night is expensive. A message from a volunteer at a shelter in Harrisburg. They opened one gym and filled it to half so people have space. They are prioritizing families with infants and anyone with medical devices that need reliable power. He says, please bring your own blankets if you can, and a small bag of personal items. He also said they have a charging strip powered by a generator, and they are limiting phones to 15 minutes, so everyone gets a turn. That is fair. A man from Newark, New Jersey just checked in. He is a building superintendent. He said he shut down the elevators before they could get stuck between floors. Then he put signs up at every stairwell with floor counts and arrows to exits. He said if the power bounces and comes back, he will wait a bit before restarting anything heavy so he does not burn a motor on a surge. He sounded tired in a good way. The useful kind of tired. We have a weak skip from Chicago, popping in and out like a heartbeat. The voice says the big lake is an aurora mirror, and some commuter lines are idled until someone signs a paper with a pen. He laughed when he said it, not mockery. Just the recognition that ink has its day. I promised myself I would not drift into big speeches, but I will allow a small one. If you are hearing me, you can hear someone. That means you are not in the lonely place that is worst of all. Turn that fact into an action. Leave a note on a neighbor's door that says you are okay and you will check again in the morning. Make a list of the small things that keep tomorrow smooth. Fill a pot with water. Lay out clothes that are easy in the dark. Put your keys in one place. Decide who takes the first hour of watch on your block if your block does that sort of thing. Normal is not a switch. It is a habit. Keep a few tonight. Static surge. The headphones crackled. The desk light flickered on the inverter and then settled. I took the hint and dialed back the transmit power a notch. If I sound a little softer, it is because I am choosing to be heard by fewer ears for longer. I will boost again for the top of the hour when I read a summary. An update from the retired lineman in Palmyra. He says crews are isolating segments and the words he used were controlled separation. He says if you see a substation yard lit up by work lights, stay back. Those fences are there for a reason. Do not be the person who tries to help by moving a branch near a wire. His voice had the gravity of experience. I am passing it on exactly as he said it. I hear a faint signal from a research station up in Maine. She said their instruments maxed out and they had to unplug half of them for their own good. She said the sky looks like someone spilled paint into the dark and forgot to stop. She asks if anyone can relay to a colleague in Boston that she will send a written report by mail when this settles. That tells you how old and how new the situation is. The post office is still a plan. The internet is not. Closer to home, a small bakery on Chocolate Avenue is handing out bread that would have gone stale by morning. The owner is friendly but firm. 1 loaf per household. Cash if you have it. A thank you if you do not. Erin put on her boots and walked down with a flashlight. She took a loaf and left a bag of flour in return. The exchange made sense. Another frequency. The railroad voice again, saying a crew with lanterns is walking a section where the crossing guards are dark. He said they are flagging the road by hand. If you approach a rural crossing and the arms are up but the lights are dead, stop and look with old-fashioned care. A train is heavy and quiet until it is not. Someone asked about safety at night. I will keep this within the bounds of common sense and decency. Lock your doors. Put a small light in a window if you have spare battery. Do not display more wealth of light than your neighbors. Do not open the door to an unknown voice without another adult present. If your town has a neighborhood watch, use it as eyes and ears, not as a reason to confront. Be visible in pairs when you check on someone. Speak through the door first. This is a night for calm routines, not heroics. I will do a top-of-the-hour summary now. Location: Derry Township, Pennsylvania, east of Hershey. Power: partial outage. Hospital: on generator. Water plant: on generator. Fuel: cash only, in most places that still pump. Communications: Cell networks unstable. Text sometimes works. Voice sporadic. Radio. HF conditions volatile. Long-distance openings mixed with deep fades. Transportation. Some flights diverted, some trains held. Some traffic signals dark. Sky. Aurora visible as far south as this latitude. Bright to the north with green and purple bands. Guidance. Stay home if safe. Conserve batteries. Check on neighbors. Use paper and pen. Treat dark intersections as four-way stops. Do not run generators indoors. Bring devices that require steady power to official shelters if needed. I will continue with listener relays. A small ceramic studio in Lebanon opened its kiln room as a warm space for elderly neighbors. The owner wrote names in chalk on the wall so she could remember who borrowed which blanket. A school custodian in York put glow sticks on the stair landings to mark the steps. That is a good trick. A pastor in Elizabethtown walked pew to pew with a flashlight, making sure nobody tried to light something under a sprinkler head. Practical faith is still faith. I am listening to a voice from Detroit fade in and out. He says their local classical station stayed on, and the announcer switched to reading practical instructions between pieces of music. He said, hearing Bach while taping blankets over a draft felt like someone steadying the ladder. Music is not a luxury if it helps you do a hard chore. If you have a battery radio with a music station, do not feel guilty for letting it play quietly while you make your lists. We are hearing the first hints that the storm may have another pulse. The hiss has a slow swell to it. A station in Iowa vanished like a light under a wave, and then returned weakly. I am going to keep my rig on a low, respectful output, and ride this one. If I suddenly go quiet mid-sentence, I will come back when the band does. While we wait, I will describe the room because it might help you imagine a person and feel less alone. Basement office. Concrete floor with a small rug. Workbench with a drawer full of odd screws. A pegboard with tools. A map of the Mid-Atlantic thumbtacked to sheetrock. A small collection of pocket radios lined up like little soldiers, some with tape on the backs that says which batteries they take. A cardboard box labeled winter with hats and hand warmers that I forgot to hand out last season. On the wall, a photo of my grandfather sitting at a table with a microphone and a coffee mug, wearing a shirt that says, "Keep your station simple." I am trying. We have a short note from a paramedic in Allentown. He says they switched to radio-only dispatch, and they are triaging calls. He asks that people with minor issues wait until daylight if safe, and that anyone with a life-threatening emergency send a neighbor to the nearest firehouse if phones do not work. He said that is an old rule, and a good one. He also said to put porch lights on if you have generator power so crews can see addresses. A school principal in Lancaster said they will open the cafeteria in the morning for coffee and warmth if the power is still out. He said they will heat water on propane stoves and use paper cups. He sounded like a man who has a checklist. Checklists beat fear 9 times out of 10. I can hear Canada on a path I do not usually get. A calm voice from Ontario reading measured updates, similar to ours. He says long lines are seeing currents. Operators are splitting into islands. Hydro stations are steady where water helps. He says the aurora is visible as far south as unusual places. We waved without seeing each other. That is what a skip feels like. Someone asked me earlier what one tool I would buy if I could go back 2 days. I would buy a second headlamp. Not brighter. Just a second one so 2 adults can work hands-free. If you are listening with stores still open and cash still accepted, that is a good use of a few dollars. Also, a set of spare alkaline batteries. Also, a clipboard and a pen for the fridge door, where you can write who went, where, and when. I am going to lower my power a little more and let the night breathe. Before I do, here is a small story. When I was a kid, my grandfather showed me how to tune slowly across a band, not hunting for the loudest voice, but for the faint one that needed help. He would hear a weak call and say, "Give me a second," and then he would answer like he had been expecting that person for a year. Tonight, I am listening for the faint. If you are in a quiet room with a small radio and a small fear, you can speak. Say your first name and your town. You do not need a speech. We will hear you if the sky allows. Here we go. A whisper from a farmhouse near Carlisle. Her name is June. She says her husband is on a night shift, and she is alone with 2 sleeping kids. She says the house creaks differently when the power is out. She says she set a pot of water on the wood stove and the knot in her stomach loosened for a moment when it started to steam. June, thank you for saying it out loud. Other parents needed to hear you name that feeling. A gentleman near Pottsville says he is on oxygen, and his neighbor ran an extension cord from a generator, taping the connection so no one kicks it. He thanked the neighbor on the air by first name, which is a gift in itself. A college student in Gettysburg says he pulled a bench to the window of his dorm and is sketching the lights of town with the aurora above, because he wants to remember that it was beautiful and strange, and not only frightening. He said he will put the drawing on the student union bulletin board when the lights come back. I am going to close this segment soon to conserve. I will return after a short off-air interval to save battery, then continue with more relays. Before I step back, I will leave a brief list you can copy. Water and clean containers, food that does not need cooking, flashlight and spare batteries, first aid kit, radio and spare batteries, paper map, cash for small purchases, warm clothes layered, a plan for morning. It is easier to sleep when the plan is in ink. This is Miles in Derry Township. I will stand by for 3 minutes, listening. Then I will return and continue. If you can hear me, I can hear you. Even if the sky makes it take a few tries, hold the line. Back on. The noise is a little higher now, and the aurora has slid from green to a pink edge like sunrise where there is no sun. Aaron just handed me a note that says the baker is closing the door and going to sleep. Good. Sleep is a resource. Same as fuel. Do not trade it away for nothing. I have a line from the Jersey Shore, a small town near the bay. The caller says the streetlights went out, but the firehouse opened its bay doors and set 2 lanterns at the threshold, like beacons. He said it changed the whole mood. People walked slower and spoke softer. He said his kid asked if this was camping. He said yes, it is a kind of camping, and tomorrow they would make pancakes on a griddle if the propane holds. The image felt like a blanket. There is a persistent rumor that credit cards will erase and bank accounts will vanish. From the people I trust, that is not how this works. Records live in many places and on many tapes, and in rooms that are not plugged into the storm right now. Patience is still the hardest tool to use, but it is the right one. A small correction to something I relayed earlier. The grocery in York that closed early is reopening in the morning for 2 hours with cash only. Exact change preferred. 1 bag per household. Jared called back to say he saw the hand-lettered sign as he walked home. Pass it along to people who do not have radio. I am hearing Annette down in Maryland coordinating fuel runs for generators at water plants. The dispatcher sounds like he is juggling with oven mitts and still catching every ball. He thanked a farmer who lent a diesel tank and a retired driver who remembered a gate code nobody had written down. Memory is a tool, too. If you have a code in your head that helps a crew open a door, write it where it can be found. It is early morning now. The aurora faded to a thin band over the northern horizon before dawn, like a dim border on a map that someone drew too carefully to erase. In our neighborhood, the house lights are patchy. Some blocks woke to a cold kitchen and a warm water heater. Other blocks have the reverse. That is what islanded power looks like. The grid is no longer a single stretch of wire and timing. It is many small boats tethered to their own anchors, rising and falling at different moments. That is deliberate. Do not assume your neighbor's lights mean you did something wrong. It may just mean your substation caught a different timing window. Aaron and I made coffee the old way. Kettle on a small camp stove in the driveway so we do not add fumes to the house. If you try this, keep clear space around the flame. Keep a bucket of water nearby, and do not leave it to wander. We poured a cup for Mrs. Delgado's son and dropped 2 extra filters in a plastic bag for later. Small routines carry a day farther than big speeches. For anyone keeping technical notes, conditions on the airwaves shifted with sunrise. High-frequency paths that were loud at midnight are soft now, while closer-in signals are better. If you have a simple wire antenna, This is the hour to use near-vertical incident skywave on the low bands to reach towns a few hundred miles away. If that sentence means nothing to you, the translation is this. Short-range regional communication works best right now. Long-haul is hit or miss. Keep your power low, your messages short, and your mind open to faint voices. I am going to read a short list of local statuses before we swing wider. Derry Township Water Plant, IBN. Generator steady. Fuel truck confirmed en route before noon. Penn State Health up on generator, across multiple wings. Non-critical clinics closed. Urgent care consolidating. Turkey Hill on Governor Road. NET. Closed to rest inventory and count fuel. Reopens for cash sales at noon with a purchase limit. Hershey Volunteer Fire Company. Crew rotation posted at the station door. Walk-in medical check, only for heat and cold concerns. Call first if phones work. Township Police. Radio steady. Traffic control by portable stop signs where necessary. Road conditions. Clear. One downed limb on Sand Hill Road, already marked with cones. That is what I have. A quiet call from Lancaster says 2 supermarkets will open for 2 hours late morning. Cash only. 1 cart per family. No frozen goods unless you can keep them cold. A bakery is selling day-old bread at a discount to move stock before it spoils. If you go with a list. Move with patience, and bring exact change if possible. Store managers are doing arithmetic with pencils. Help them by being simple. A county operations center to the west reported that several long transmission lines are physically disconnected while the space weather indices remain high. The phrase a lineman used last night still applies: controlled separation. If you see a substation that looks too quiet, it may be resting on purpose. This is not a panic switch. This is a hand on a throttle. I am getting a stable voice out of a hospital in Harrisburg. The charge nurse said they switched several device banks to battery rotation and set up a quiet room with chairs spaced for people to rest, while phones charge for 15 minutes at a time on a generator strip. She asked me to pass a gentle reminder. If you are not a patient or caregiver, please do not bring non-essential devices to charge. They are saving that for monitors, communication gear, and the essentials that keep humans steady. From the broader region, a pilot over central New Jersey is describing airborne holding patterns that look like spirals drawn by a careful hand. He says air traffic control is doing manual spacing with clear voice procedures, and that patience is high in the cockpit. He mentioned Newark diverting some arrivals to longer runways elsewhere to give ground crews breathing room. That is not chaos. That is a plan adjusting to friction in the timing gears. I will mark the clock for a community net. For the next few minutes, if you have a concise status that helps your town, speak with first name, location, and 2 facts. Keep it to 15 seconds and clear. I will relay key items twice. Hannah, in Mechanicsburg, and Marl. Pharmacy opening at 10, for essential prescriptions only. Handwritten logs. Bring ID and script numbers. Ken in York. Water tower filling cycle complete. Pressure stable. Please avoid lawn watering to conserve. Adele in Elizabethtown. A. School cafeteria serving hot cereal and coffee from propane stoves. Bring your own mug if possible. Richard in Palmyra. 2 Meyer. Traffic signals dark at 4 intersections. Portable stop signs set. Drivers cooperating. No incidents yet. Tasha in Lebanon. MI. Community Center Gym. Warmed by natural gas heaters. Quiet space for infants and elderly. No pets inside. For those running small generators, the fire company asked me to repeat the basics. Outdoors only. 20 feet from open windows. Exhaust pointed away from doors. Carbon monoxide alarms with fresh batteries inside the home. Use heavy gauge outdoor cords. Do not backfeed a house panel unless you have a transfer switch installed by a licensed professional. I know it is tempting to make a dark house glow. Keep safety larger than your impatience. A quick correction from our friend, the retired lineman. He says what most people call transformers cooking is technically thermal stress from geomagnetically induced currents, next slow DC-like flow through long conductors that saturate the cores. The practical summary is the same. Utilities want to lower load and split the network during peaks to keep the iron cool. If you hear someone say the equipment is melting, that is not the right picture. Think of it as strain that gets worse with long levers. Shorter levers. Islands, ease it. An engineer at a broadcast station near Philadelphia checked in. He said their main transmitter is on a clean generator and they are running a slim schedule to reduce wear. He also said their content team is using a printed rotation so that if computers go odd, the announcer still knows which segments to read. That is a tip for any organization listening. Have a paper plan. Tape it to a wall. The fancy screen can sleep. The paper can stay awake. I am hearing a faint beacon from a coastal station in Maryland that I do not usually copy. The operator is sending a simple rhythm that tells volunteers along the bay to report tide anomalies and harbor conditions. He is probably hearing from boats running on their own house batteries and tiny antennas. If you are on the water, do not assume your depth sounder is telling the whole truth while the sky is unsettled. Give yourself margins and remember that a human eye is still a remarkable instrument when it is pointed at a shoreline and not at a screen. Closer to home, a grocer on Chocolate Avenue posted a paper sign. Bread, milk, shelf-stable items, cash only, 10 customers inside at a time. Limit 2 of any one item. Aaron went early, waited with a thermos, and exchanged recipes for stovetop meals with 2 families in line. She came home with rice, beans, and a small box of tea that made the kitchen feel civilized again. I know the word civilized sounds grand for a tea box. That is the point. Small civilities are scaffolding. Let me speak to parents for a minute. If you have children, the noise of adult worry can creep into their day like a draft. Give them practical tasks. Ask a child to count batteries, line them up by size, and label a basket. Ask a teenager to make a paper map of the block, with notes on who needs checking twice a day. Ask a young kid to sort cans by food type. Work turns worry into shape. I'm going to update on transportation. A freight dispatcher near Enola reports trains moving under manual authority between controlled points, with crews stopping to verify switches by hand when needed. He said it slows everything down, but slow is a friend when timing systems wobble. Diesel is being conserved by longer dwell times at yards. If you are a shipper, expect schedules written in pencil. If you are a neighbor near a crossing, expect a human with a flag before a horn. Medical note from York Hospital. A volunteer coordinator asked me to announce that families should bring basic comfort items if they visit. Blankets, headphones, paperbacks. To reduce strain on waiting areas. Also, please use text rather than voice if the cellular network is unstable. Texts ride through narrower pipes and are more likely to arrive when the networks breathe in and out. We have a brief skip from New York City that is stronger now with the morning. A building superintendent in Brooklyn says stairwells were swept clear of debris last night and emergency lights checked by hand. He shut down elevators during the worst of the flicker and is bringing them back one by one with caution. He posted a floor-by-floor paper directory so residents can find neighbors who need help. He asked me to repeat the stairwell door advice. Prop with a wedge when you pass through so you do not get locked between floors. To those wondering about financial systems, I will keep this simple and avoid speculation. Banks keep redundant records in multiple locations. Outages and network timing issues can delay access, but balances are not erased by a sky show. That is not optimism. That is how those systems are designed. Bring cash for the moment. Expect manual receipts. Keep a small ledger at home, so you remember which places you paid by paper. A farmer outside Anvil checked in with a clear, practical voice. He said his well pump is on a generator 3 hours a day to fill a holding tank. He times laundry and dishwashing for those windows. He offered to let neighbors fill 2 jugs per household between 5 and 6 in the evening if they bring clean containers. He said, "Please, no trucks in the side field. It is soft from last week's rain. Generosity with a boundary is generosity that lasts." We will do another 15-second round. Nora in Camp Hill, Nora gas station. Hand-pumped 2 mechanical dispensers. Cash only. Line moves slowly. Bring small bills. Ben in Hershey, volunteer firefighters checking on folks who use powered medical gear. Call the station if you need a battery swap. Andre in Harrisburg, ANN. Main library closed. Branch library open as a quiet, warm room with board games and books. First come, first served. Elise, in reading. Bakery handing out rolls at noon that will not keep. 1 bag per family. Jonah in Carlisle. Outdoor market tomorrow, if weather holds. Vendors cash only. Posted prices. Hand scales. For anyone new to handheld radios this morning, a reminder about etiquette that makes shared air better. Listen before you push the button. Speak clearly, not loudly. Say who you are, where you are, 1 or 2 facts, then clear the channel. If you need to keep a conversation going, move to a secondary frequency you announced before clearing. The airwaves are a hallway. Do not stop in the doorway. A question came in from a listener about food safety. I am passing along the basic guideline from our county health inspector who left a paper handout at the shelter. Keep refrigerator doors closed. If the power has been out for more than 4 hours, perishable foods in the fridge may be unsafe. Frozen foods can stay solid longer in a closed freezer. When in doubt, and if smell is off or texture is odd, choose caution. This is not wasteful. This is protective. Plan meals around what must be used first. We have our first strong path into the Midwest today. A municipal engineer in Cleveland reports deliberate rolling dark periods, scheduled block by block to prevent unplanned outages. He said the city posted paper notices on utility poles at intersections. If you live there, bring your own pencil and write the times on your refrigerator so you can plan to cook or heat during the on windows. With screens dim, paper takes the load. A teacher in State College called to say she set up a small lesson on how compasses can be playful during a storm and had students draw north as they saw it over an hour. The lines on the paper do not agree. She turned it into a lesson about trusting multiple senses. She asked students to look at the sun, shadows, and landmarks, not just the needle. That teacher is doing community service disguised as science. I will take a moment for our neighborhood log. Last night, a garage on the corner flickered with a portable heater plugged into an inverter on a sedan. The owner cracked both windows and set a small fan to move air away from the car. He had a carbon monoxide alarm on the workbench. It chirped once to say it was alive and then stayed quiet. He checked it every 10 minutes. That is the difference between careful and lucky. Be careful. Do not ask luck to do a job it is not qualified for. We have a call from Baltimore. The port cranes are still where they stopped mid-arc. Cargo shifts are on hold until all manual checks are complete. Harbor pilots report plenty of hands with binoculars on rooftops, watching for stray navigation lights. If you are near a port, please resist the urge to sightsee too close. Let the crews keep a safe perimeter. A big machine at rest is not harmless. Several people asked about school schedules. Local districts are posting paper notices at central offices and reading them over battery-powered PA systems at shelters. Expect staggered openings for meal programs and warm rooms even if classes are paused. If your child receives school meals, check the district door for times and bring reusable containers if allowed. The cafeteria steam table may be a stockpot today. That is fine. Heat is heat, and a bowl is a bowl. I am going to read a small segment for those running neighborhood nets. Make a board. Draw 3 columns. Needs, resources, assignments. Needs are specific: 2D batteries for alarm, 1 warm blanket, ride to clinic. Resources are also specific: spare 5-gallon water jug, headlamp with 4 AAA batteries, time to walk dogs for neighbors. Assignments are names beside tasks. No one gets to be heroic in a paragraph. We get to be useful in a line. Signal lift. I am catching Ontario clearly. The operator at a hydro station says river levels are steady, and their turbine haul is carrying a good slice of local load. Water is a patient partner in a storm like this. He asked people downstream to avoid the temptation to run small generators inside boathouses. He said they saw it too many times after windstorms. He is right. Resist shortcuts. A library worker in Hershey just phoned via landline before it cut again, and then called on a handheld. She said they are setting a table at the entrance with maps of the township printed last year. Free to take 1 per household. There is a wall calendar beside it and a note asking people to write the times their streets regained and lost power, so a pattern emerges. That log will help when the utility crews ask where the flickers fell. We will do another quick burst of listener relays. Omar in Ephrata, 19 fuel distributor, sending a small tanker to top off generators at 2 water facilities before afternoon peak. Carla in York, oxygen supplier, open 2 hours for cylinder exchanges. Bring documentation. Call ahead if possible. Diego in Harrisburg, Apan, neighborhood watch walking in pairs. Reflective vests. No confrontations. Just eyes and ears. Pauline in Lidditz, 2ATI. Retirement community has a common room warmed by gas fireplace. Volunteers reading books aloud. Shane in Lancaster, bike shop, offering free air and tube patches to keep bicycles rolling while fuel is conserved. A listener asked about well pumps and water security. If you have a private well and a generator, consider running the pump to fill a non-pressurized holding tank once or twice a day and drawing from that with gravity. Instead of keeping the pump cycling, mark the tank with tape at 1/4, 1/2, and full. Keep the lid on to avoid contamination. If you use a bucket, tie the handle with a clean cloth so the metal does not touch the water you drink. These are small housekeeping details that add up to a calm stomach later. From the railroad again, a conductor said they are doing joint inspections at dusk today to ensure every grade crossing on their line has temporary signage and a human at busier crossings during commute hours. If you see a safety vest and a flashlight at a crossing, roll down your window and make eye contact. That human is the signal tonight. I will breathe for a second and look at my battery meter. It is holding in the good zone for this duty cycle. I swap to the second deep cycle at dawn and put the small solar blanket on the hood to grab whatever clear intervals we have between clouds. If you have a small panel, even a trickle helps. The point is not to charge from empty to full. The point is to slow the slide. We are starting to hear about communities further out that face small fires started by candles and stoves used unwisely. I will keep this in bounds and simply repeat what our fire chief asked me to say. 3 feet of clear space around any open flame or heating device. Never leave it unattended. Keep a lid nearby to smother a small pan flare. Do not pour water onto hot oil. If a fire grows beyond what you can cover with a lid, leave and call for help. Stuff can be replaced. People cannot. A nursing home in Dauphin County called to say they have power from a natural gas generator and are stable. They asked for volunteers to sit and read to residents this afternoon to keep the mood steady. If you have time and are healthy, bring a clean paperback and a friendly voice. Call ahead first. The coordinator will match you to a wing. We are hearing the first measured indication from 3 sources that the solar indices are trending down from the overnight peak. That does not mean done. It means the worst pulses may be easing. Utility control rooms will take their time. Expect careful, slow resynchronization of islands and conservative ramp-ups. If your lights return and flicker, do not throw a party with every device at once. Heat and cool in stages. Make the grid welcome in your house by being a polite guest on the line. A caller named Arun from near Newark said he used a hand-pumped siphon to transfer fuel from a backup tank to a small generator without lifting heavy weight. He wanted neighbors to know that a simple siphon kit can save a back and prevent spills. He also reminded everyone to store fuel safely, upright, away from heat, and to label everything in large letters. Good advice from someone who sounded like he has done this more than once. We will pause for a 1-minute quiet interval for other stations to use the frequency. Then I will return with a midday summary and a few practical lists. Stand by. Back. Midday summary from Derry Township and the region. Power, mixed. Deliberate islanding in effect across multiple counties. Water, municipal systems on generator rotations. Private wells reliant on individual plans. Hospitals, running on generator. Consolidating services. Volunteers needed for non-clinical tasks. Fuel, cash only. Rationing in several stations. Mechanical pumps in some places. Transportation. Manual control. At some intersections and rail crossings. Airports operating with diversions and manual spacing. Commerce. Cash and paper receipts. Limited hours. Priority to essentials. Communications. MU. Cellular unstable. Text preferred. Radio seeing regional reliability. Long-haul paths improving and fading with solar conditions. Safety. Generators outside. Candles and stoves guarded. Neighbors checking on elders and infants. That is the shape of the day. Let me add a section on mental pacing. Decide in the morning what 3 tasks matter. Write them. Do them. Do not attempt to fix the entire map of modern life from your kitchen table. If your 3 tasks today are water, meals, and a check on 2 neighbors, that is a full day. If you have energy left, take a short walk and describe the sky to someone who cannot step outside. Leave big arguments for later. You cannot argue a transformer cool. You can carry a blanket upstairs. We have a guest voice for a moment. A friend named Noah, a radio tech from Harrisburg, came on to walk us through how to set up a simple neighborhood repeater of the humankind. Put a responsible person with a handheld at the corner grocery for 1 hour. Put another at the school for the next hour. Give them paper forms with 3 lines. Name, need, callback location. At the top of the hour, swap people and carry the papers to a central table where a coordinator matches resources to needs. This works without electricity, because voices are electricity. If you run it fairly and kindly, you will feel the neighborhood grow steadier. We have confirmation from a state road crew that portable message boards will be placed on 2 state routes to advise of signal outages ahead. Those boards run on small solar panels and internal batteries. If you see them dim, do not assume the message is wrong. Drive as if the road is your responsibility. It is. A parent from Hershey called with a good reminder. Children read the tone on our faces faster than they read the words on paper. Smile when you can, even if it is a small one. Invite a child to call a grandparent on a landline for a quick hello if it works, or to record a note on a cassette or a piece of paper if it does not. The act of sending steadies the sender as much as the receiver. Another technical note for the radio community. Several beacons on the lower bands are healthy. If you have the ability, listen and log. Send your reports later to the operators once networks are normal. Our collective notes help researchers understand how this storm behaved. That, in turn, helps power companies and pilots prepare for next time. Even in a basement with a wire and a pencil, you are part of a data set that matters. We have a short update from a hospital in Lancaster. They are asking anyone visiting to bring a labeled water bottle and a sweater for waiting rooms. They have heat but are keeping set points lower to conserve fuel. This is the kind of detail that tells you professionals are thinking 2 days ahead, not just 2 hours. A librarian in New York said they set up a story corner at the shelter to read quietly to children while parents handle lists. She asked for volunteers with gentle voices and patience. If you do not have supplies to donate, time and calm are high-value gifts. We are receiving the first clear audio from Boston since early morning. The public station there has a measured announcer reading segments about water use, public transit updates, and a handful of cultural notes to remind people that the city still has a heartbeat. He read a short paragraph about a lighthouse flashing correctly through the night, powered by a small separate system, and you could hear listeners breathe through the microphones in relief. Orientation matters to the human brain. A light that stays on tells a mind the world is still shaped like a world. Now a quick list of things you can do to make the next 12 hours smoother. Charge what you must while power is present. Reduce what you do not need. Prepare 1 hot meal and 1 cold meal plan. Set aside a gallon of water per person if you can. Put out a bowl of pet food for the evening to avoid opening containers in the dark. Lay clothing for morning. Set alarm clocks that run on battery if you must wake for work. Tape a note on the door with errands you must do in 1 trip. The fewer trips, the calmer the roads. A listener near Reading asked about keeping medications cool. If you have ice packs in a cooler, use them sparingly and keep the cooler closed. If you have snow outdoors and it is clean and safe to use, pack ice between sealed containers, not directly with medication, unless approved by a pharmacist, in general guidance. Always read instructions and consult a professional when possible. This is a broadcast from a neighbor, not a prescription. We have an encouraging note from a substation tech near Carlisle. He says their team has reconnected 1 short loop and is gradually restoring service to a few streets that were dark. He emphasized that this does not mean the event is over. It means they identified a safe window to bring 1 pocket back online. Thank the crews when you see them. Do not crowd them. A wave in space is the correct hello today. We will now pause for community acknowledgements. A bike mechanic who fixed 3 strollers for free. A baker who set aside a gluten-free loaf for a kid with dietary needs. A scout troop that put reflective tape on storm drains, so pedestrians stop tripping as they pass in the evening. A neighbor who set a folding table on the sidewalk with a pot of hot water and a sign that said tea if you need 5 minutes of quiet. These are all small, and they are the bones of a good day. Afternoon band conditions are rising and falling like a slow tide. I am catching a clean path to Chicago again. The municipal voice there says they will post a public list of warming centers at police precincts and libraries and update it twice a day on paper boards at bus stops. That is a very good practice that other cities might copy. The pattern is consistent. Write it, tape it, update it. I am going to address another common question without going into speculation. Could this get worse tonight? The short answer from space weather bulletins is that additional pulses are possible as the cloud continues to wash past Earth. The measured trend since dawn is toward lower peaks, but the sun is not a switch you can flip. Operators will remain conservative into the evening. Plan for another night of mixed power and careful travel. Plan for patience. A private note to someone who asked if it is okay to be afraid. Yes, it is okay. The trick is to let fear be a signal, not a driver. Use it to check your list, not to flood your speech. Drink a glass of water. Write down 3 useful actions. Do one of them. Repeat. We will have another call-in minute. Keep it crisp. Ray and Hershey. Clinic needs size AA and D batteries. Drop at side door between 2 and 4 with a label. Martin and Lancaster. LM. Church basement, serving soup at 5. Bring your own container and spoon. Limit 1 ladle per person to start. Sal in Harrisburg. AI. Corner store, accepting cash for rice, pasta, canned vegetables. Line moderate. Polite customers appreciated. Joy in Elizabethtown. 9. Apartment stairwell lights out. Volunteers taped glow sticks to the handrails. Safer already. Caleb in York. Tow trucks assisting at dark intersections to move stalled vehicles. Do not abandon your car in the lane. A calm voice from Ontario returned to say their hydro crews are rotating meals and sleep so no one goes into a live yard on an empty stomach. That level of discipline is the difference between a long week and a bad hour. If you are coordinating any crew, copy that rhythm. Feed, rest, rotate. Aaron just came downstairs to hand me a paper note that says Mrs. Delgado is napping and her son set a kitchen timer to remind himself to check the generator fuel. She also wrote that the teenager across the street offered to walk Pepper, the clever dog, for Owen so Owen can help his mom carry water up the stairs. The small economy of favors is humming. We are going to talk about sanitation carefully and within bounds. If water service is interrupted, keep a covered bucket with a liner for emergencies. Use a small amount of cat litter or baking soda to reduce odor and seal the bag carefully when full. Store it outside in a safe container until municipal pickup resumes or instructions are posted. Wash hands with soap and a small pitcher of water poured over a bowl. Do not let small problems become big ones in this category. A community college in Harrisburg is offering 2 classrooms as charging rooms for essential devices during specific hours this afternoon. They posted a notice on the door limiting usage to medical devices first, then communication for caregivers, then general. Bring your own power brick and cable. Label both. A music teacher called with a lovely idea for morale. She is organizing a porch concert at 6 in the evening for 6 minutes. Each participant playing quietly, so as not to disturb. Just enough to remind a block that sound can be kind. She asked that anyone who joins keep it short and simple. If you do not have an instrument, hum. If you do not hum, clap once and smile. This is not silly. This is medicine with no bottle. We will do a late afternoon summary. Derry Township. My. Status improving in pockets. Deliberate blackouts continuing in others. Regional. Measured trend toward reduced solar activity, but continued caution from utilities. Transportation. Mixed signals. Manual control where required. Patience on roads. Hospitals. Help END. Stable on generators. Volunteers helpful for non-clinical tasks. Water. Generators at plants fueled for the day. Private wells managing with personal plans. Commerce. Cash. Paper receipts. Priority to essentials. Exact change speeds lines. Safety. Generator use outside. Candle safety. Kitchen caution. Neighbor checks. Mental pacing. 3 useful tasks per day. Lists on paper. Early evening routines. I am going to outline an early evening routine that served us last night. At 4, we filled pots for dinner and morning. At 4:30, we set out candles in safe holders but did not light them until full dark. At 5, we took a short walk to see which houses had needs and which had extras to trade. At 5:30, we ate something warm and something crisp. At 6, we checked on elders and infants. At 7, we gathered in the living room and told one story each that did not use the words outage or storm. At 8, we set phones to airplane mode and radios to a known frequency for check-ins. At 9, we slept in turns. Copy it or adapt it. Routines are bridges across strange hours. This next bit is for small business owners. If you must close early, leave a note with clear hours for tomorrow, a list of what you will sell, and a reminder to bring exact change. If you have perishables to give, write the time they will be available and a limit per person. Shape the line before it forms. People are grateful when expectations are clear. High frequency is opening to the south again. I am catching a station in the Carolinas, reporting lights steady in some counties and cautious in others. The operator read a short section on how their emergency operations center is fielding calls by paper and making radio callbacks at the top of each hour. That rhythm may be worth copying here if phone networks remain jittery in the evening. A small caution about rumor control. If a sentence begins with, "I heard that someone said the city will," pause. Verify with a posted paper notice at a government building or a voice from an official channel. Pass along only what you can point to. False urgency is heavy to carry and useless to lift. We have word from the volunteer fire company that they will conduct a siren test at 6:15 to ensure manual controls are working. It is not an emergency, just a systems check. If you hear it at that time, nod and carry on. A mom called from across town to say their block is organizing a shared meal at the end of the cul-de-sac, with each family bringing one pot of something. They set a table for food in the center and chairs in a circle around it. They wrote the allergens on index cards beside each dish to be considerate. They also set a quiet corner for those who need calm. This is what community looks like without screens. An engineer friend asked me to remind the technically inclined that sensitive electronics can be protected by unplugging them during uncertain reconnections. Surge protectors help, but nothing beats physical separation from the line during unstable intervals. Plug in only what you need when you need it. Evening approaches. The sky is clear in stripes and streaks. The air on the radio thickens a little as the sun angles down. Long-haul paths may return with the dark, and with them voices from far away who do not know where we are and need a simple anchor. If you are a confident operator, please take a small slice of time tonight to sit on a frequency and answer the lost by saying your city, your status, and a short welcome. You may never meet them, but you can steady them. We will close with a final set of practical reminders before this segment rests the battery. Check smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. Place flashlights at bed level within reach. Put a pair of shoes beside the bed so you do not walk barefoot if something falls overnight. Lock doors and windows without making the house feel like a fortress. Note the nearest shelter hours on a sticky note. If you have an extra blanket, put it on the porch rail with a sign that says "Take if you are cold." Small generosity multiplies without depleting the giver. I will return after a short, quiet interval to conserve power and prepare for the evening net. This is Miles Carter in Derry Township. You are listening to the radio as the great solar storm passes over our shared roof. The sky is loud, but your voice is steady. Hold that line. I will be back. Back on frequency for the evening net. Thank you for the patience. I rotated batteries and wrote the last hour's notes onto a clean sheet. Aaron set a kettle on the camp stove and made tea for the neighbor walking dogs. The air outside has that hollow calm you get after snow falls. Only the ground is bare. It is more a quiet of agreement than of weather. People are moving slower by choice. We have strong regional coverage again. Reports from Harrisburg indicate the state posted printed maps at the Capitol complex, listing open shelters, food distribution points, and medical triage sites. The maps have QR codes that will be useful later and phone numbers that are useful now. A smart use of one piece of paper for two timelines. If you pass those maps, take a photo when networks return, so you have the numbers stored. A dispatcher on the railroad says they finished their dusk inspections and set lanterns at 3 crossings to guide pedestrians. Drivers are cooperating. He said it feels like the county remembered old rules quickly. I am proud of this valley tonight. A light aircraft pilot who diverted to Lancaster confirmed that the runway lights held, and ground crews used hand signals with extra clarity while headsets glitched. He said the calm on the ramp was notable. If you are near an airport fence, give them space and wish them well from a distance. We will now run a structured check-in for anyone coordinating a neighborhood. Format is the same. First name, town, 1 need, 1 surplus. I will read 5 and match when possible. Evan in Hershey. Need. 2 AA batteries for a smoke detector. Surplus. A gallon of distilled water. Mara in Hummelstown. AM Mead. A space heater extension cord rated properly. Surplus. Extra blankets. Lee in Palmyra. Need. Insulin cold storage tips. Surplus. Canned soups. Gina in Elizabethtown. AR. Need. Pet food for a small dog. Surplus. Rice. Jonah in Middletown. Need. Help moving an elder from 2nd floor to 1st floor bedroom. Surplus. Unused headlamp. Matches forming. Evan's AA batteries can come from Jonah's neighbor who wrote in last hour that he had a multi-pack. I will connect you after the net with a simple relay at the firehouse. Gina's pet food request can be met by Carla in York, who called earlier about a pet supply store opening for 1 hour tomorrow. She will leave a small bag at the desk with Gina's name. Lee's question about insulin storage was already addressed by the clinic nurse, who asked visitors to bring coolers. She said they will have limited cooler space and can advise on temporary household strategies. Please coordinate with a pharmacist if possible. The sun is sliding behind the trees. The ionosphere is behaving like a tide pool that keeps breathing. Signals swell, then hush, then swell again. I will keep my output low to stretch the battery and rely on the community to fill the gaps with local relays. If I disappear mid-sentence, assume the band dipped, and I will be back on the next breath of the sky. A caller from Pittsburgh reports that one of their large AM stations returned to full strength and is doing continuous public service segments, including reading grocery opening hours submitted by fax and hand delivery. It sounds almost quaint to say fax in the year we are in, but the machine is a bridge that still stands when packets wander. Technology layers do not fail all at once. They peel, find the layer that still sticks, and use it. I hear a faint medical net in Philadelphia coordinating dialysis schedules with generator hours. They are matching patients to time slots by address to reduce travel in the dark. If you are part of that net, I salute your discipline. If you are not, consider how to copy the idea for your own block. 1 resource, 1 schedule, 1 map, less motion. We will close this part of the broadcast with a final evening routine checklist tailored to a night with partial power. Set out a small lamp on an inverter only if you have capacity, and point it toward the ceiling to diffuse light without drawing attention from the street. Place a note on the door with the times you will be awake for check-ins, so neighbors know when to knock. Put breakfast dry goods on the counter so you do not rummage in the dark. Set a timer on a wind-up or battery clock for early morning tasks. Put phones on airplane mode with alarms set to conserve. Stack firewood or fuel where you can reach it without going outside in the middle of the night. Breathe. Drink water. Say goodnight to someone out loud. This is Miles Carter, Derry Township. You are listening to the radio as the great solar storm moves into its 2nd evening. I will power down for a longer interval to let the battery rest and to let the neighborhood net breathe. I will be back before midnight for a short overnight check. Keep your voice calm, your list small, and your light safe.